Hey, everyone from Instagram friends and people of YouTube. It's Jeremy Isabella, and this is my review of the Fender Telecaster guitar that I have right here. I got it a couple weeks ago, so I've had some good time to sort of get to know it quite a bit, and people will occasionally ask me about the equipment I use, which is always cool. So I figured I'd make a little video kind of just explaining some stuff about the guitar and my process for buying it and selecting it. So what is this thing? It is a American vintage reissue Telecaster by Fender, of course. It has it's based on the 1952 specs, basically, so it's very similar in terms of the overall look of it and the hardware, and I assume the feel as well of a 52 Telecaster. And it has the the classic butterscotch blonde finish with the black pickguard. And I've had it for about 2 weeks now, and I'm really starting to like it quite a bit. So it's my first Telecaster, and these price range, they're a bit pricey for the AVRI. You're definitely looking to spend, they're worth over $1,000, so they're not cheap. And I had several models I was considering, looking at different ones. Ended up deciding that this was an acceptable price range. I was thinking about going higher for something custom shop, like a no-caster, something like that, or just a custom shop Tele. And then I was even considering going lower for a Mexican. They have a nice model called the Fender Road Worn Tele, which is again a Mexican, similar style to this. But I decided, and I've played one of those before, and I'm sure they're good guitars for the price, which is under $1,000, of course. But I decided I wanted something a little bit nicer, something like this. So something American, and spec-wise, it's pretty standard for what you would expect for a Telecaster. Pretty bare bones, pretty simple. I mean, you can leave it out in the desert, and it'll still play. You can bring it in the Arctic tundra, it'll still play. You can drop it down a flight of stairs, hit it with a hammer, throw it off a building, it'll probably still play, just because they're so solid and just sturdy, just well made. So I've wanted a Tele for a long time, a couple years now. It's been just something in the back of my head, like, yeah, I knew I would get one eventually, just because, I mean, everything I've mentioned so far and more, it's all just good stuff. Just the list of great Telecaster players is just, it's too long to even list. But there's been so many great Telecaster players, and there's just something unique to it, and you can play so many styles with it. Just a great guitar. And back to the specs, pretty standard. It has a 7 1/4 radius fretboard, which is very rounded. I definitely was not used to that, because I haven't played a fretboard that is that rounded, and that definitely took a lot of getting used to. It certainly makes chording quite a bit easier, because you can kind of just wrap your hands around the board, and it kind of just fits the hand very nicely. It has a very skinny neck, so not a fat neck by any means, like a lot of the older Teles supposedly will have the fat neck. Pretty thin neck, which I'm fine with. I don't really have a particular preference for neck shapes. Most of my guitars are fairly thin neck though, but it wasn't a requirement that I needed a fat neck, because I don't even know if I would like it that much. So the fretboard took a while to get used to. Just bending and doing vibrato is a little bit difficult to get used to. If you're used to a flatter board, you have less room. It's a little bit harder to play in that regard. And also the frets on this thing, medium tall frets, medium narrow. So they're not large by any means at all, and there is some wear, especially around lower down in the first and second position, but even up a little bit, they're a little bit worn. I mean, it's an older guitar. I forgot to mention it's 92. I mean, not 92, 99. So this is a 1999 one. So it's been around the block. It's pretty old. I mean, I have some friends who are actually younger than this guitar, unfortunately. So yeah, it's been around the block. It's definitely got some dings in it, some scuffs. Nothing too major though. It's still in great condition, and I don't even mind having a couple dings in it. I'm sure I'll end up putting some into it. I actually like how the Fender logo has a chunk missing out of the F there. I actually kind of like that. So yeah, I mean, it looks great. I was talking about the frets, very, very thin frets. So it's been difficult to get used to for me. It's taken me a while. Like the first few days playing it, I was like, oh wow, this is kind of difficult to play for me, because I'm coming from playing a Strat that I'm pretty sure has like a 9 3/4 radius, and also I know for certain it has jumbo frets, very large frets, very round jumbo frets, which is very comfortable, especially if you're doing a lot of vibrato all the time. So to come to this with these kind of tiny frets, it really took me a couple weeks of playing it, and I sort of played this only to just get used to it, and now I feel pretty comfortable with it. But I'm sure if I went to the Strat, back to the Strat with those big frets, that's going to be, they're very different. They play very different. But like I said, I spent enough time with this where I can sort of get my sound out of this now at this point. Although I still have time to definitely have a lot of time to spend still to fully master it, of course. But what was I going to mention next? The other thing, so standard specs, very very lightweight, 6.5 or 6 pounds 6 ounces. So I'm really happy with that weight. And I guess the buying process. So I had narrowed it down. I knew how much I wanted to spend. Knew I wanted an American. Kind of ruled out the custom shop stuff at a certain point, just because it was a little bit high in the price range. There were certain ones that were lower, like around two grand, that I was considering, but ended up deciding that this would be a good model, and I ended up getting lucky, and I found 2 listings for this guitar. They were both by Chicago Music Exchange, which is where I bought it from, and their listings are very good on Reverb, because they have, first of all, they have professional photos taken of the guitars in a nice showroom. So after I bought it, of course I downloaded all those images, and now I just have some really professional, high resolution photographs of this guitar on my computer. And they just list out all the specs for the guitar right on the listing, and it's very meticulous. Everything from the type of frets, radius, everything is stock in this thing, which they confirmed, and I believe them, because they have a technician who looks at it, they play it, they tell you the condition. The only thing that has been changed are these saddles. Someone put in compensated saddles, which is actually a good thing, and it intonates very well up the neck, except for the D and G string are a little bit sharp at the 12th fret, which I'm going to fix. But other than that, it intonates very well. And so there was another one that I was looking at, same model. It was AVRI. That was a new one though. That was a 2019, so 20 years newer, pretty much brand new. That had a little bit different specs. I believe it had a fatter neck on it, and I believe it had larger frets, and it had a kind of a standard 9 3/4 radius. Those are the main differences. This one I thought looked a bit nicer. The maple fretboard is a little bit darker. It's kind of aged a little bit more, and the other one was very light colored. You can kind of tell it was brand new. So that kind of appealed to me, that this thing had been around the block. And there's actually some nice wear along the top of the board. where your hand would be. So it made it very easy to compare the two models and decide, which guitar am I going to want? Because buying a guitar online, which this was my first time doing so, can be a bit risky. But I kind of just trusted that the seller was good, which they are. I'd say they're extremely professional. I mean, obviously they're known around the world and certainly around the country as being a very high quality, very reputable dealer. Lots of great stuff to offer. So nothing but good things to say. And it made it very easy to pick between the two, and I ended up going with this one for those reasons listed above. Now the neck was another thing that sort of bothered me right when I got it. It's very glossy. It's got that finish on it. I'm not even sure what they use, but it's got that shine, right along the neck. And I noticed that my hand was kind of just getting stuck because there's no real way to get your sweat on to lubricate it. So I was actually considering stripping some of the finish off the neck just to make it a little bit faster. I'm not really sure I'm going to do that anymore because, like I said, I've gotten used to it to the point where I can play fast enough, and I don't think I play particularly fast anyway. At least that's not my goal, is to be a super fast player. So I definitely have gotten used to it to the point where I can play as fast as I want. I don't feel like my back of my hand's getting hung up on the neck. So yeah, 3-way switch, stock pickups, pretty standard, pretty bare bones. So that about wraps it up with this review. Yeah, I mean, it's a Telecaster. I would recommend it for sure. It's a fun instrument. You can play any style of music you want on it. You can get 1,010,000 different sounds out of just these controls right here, as well as how you play. I think it's made me a better player. Like I said, I actually struggled for a couple weeks trying to get used to it and everything. But I'm home now, so. Thanks for watching.